I don't even know where it is. Okay. Good morrow, dudes and dudettes. I'm your host, Dylan Kubler-Ross. Just kidding. No relation. Just wanted to jump in here real quick, say, hey, how are you? Also, more importantly, after that, after I find out how you're doing, I wanted to tell you, I also want to say thanks for tuning in, of course. Incredibly grateful that you're here. Love having you. Love doing this. Trying to do it more frequently, but it happens when it happens. And so it's like a little treat you get when you least expect it. Wanted to jump in and plug something, and I'm not talking about my beehole. I'm talking about my Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/odos if you want to support the podcast and myself. The reason I'm telling you about that is because the episode you're about to hear is a fraction of a discussion I had with my friend slash coworker. Him and I worked at the same brewery that I managed before a hurricane came and slap doodled our job. So we talked for a little bit. This episode here you're going to hear today, we focus very much on his grief with his after he lost his father in 2011 and what that experience was like. It's an incredible story that he tells. He's been through a lot. It's great. He like tells it as if he's writing a book. He ought to. He's been through a lot, and it's an impressive tale, as well as just the things that he's kind of learned from it. Is great. He embodies the podcast and the mission statement, I think, to a T without even trying. So I think you're going to really enjoy it. However, if you do want to hear an extended episode, or really any extended episodes, all of the episodes that, you know me, I'm trying to do a simple fucking intro right now, and it's taking me way longer because I beat around the bush, the metaphorical bush. So all the episodes that we have are always much longer than what you see on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that. So if you for whatever reason want to hear more of us, of me, of being in, of listening to people talk about death and grief, and in this instance, we kind of drink a couple beers and we just kind of go over and discuss our experiences with the hurricane, which was intense, more intense for him. He was down right on the river where the water came into his house and destroyed a bunch of his stuff, and it's kind of wild. The way he talks about it's pretty crazy. So if you want to hear more, if you want to listen to me Jim Jammer more, you can go to patreon.com/odos, ODAS. And there are two options for subscriptions. I think they're relatively the same. I actually don't know the difference. One of them gets, I think you can do $5 a month or $10 a month, whatever you want. It helps a lot if you want to. Trying to be a little bit less humble about it and just let people know it's there. But that's where the big uncut episodes go. Uncircumcised episodes will go on there. And if you want to support, that's huge. We really appreciate it here at the studio, my grandmother and I. And so I think that's it. The episode's great. The things that Cannon shares with us are amazing. His 2 cents are really great. We get into some theology stuff, and he talks about his outlook based on his experiences with grief. And it's really wonderful. I learned a lot about him. I learned a lot about me. I did learn that I know how to say and ah and oh wow and right and sure a lot. Need to work on those interviewing skills. But without further ado, here's the music. Here's the episode. Patreon.com/odos. Love y'all so much. Thanks for tuning in. If I don't talk to you, happy 2025. I think it's going to be a good one. I love you so much. We will talk to you soon. Okay, bye. Well, your figurative great grandchildren. Did it sting like when you had to get rid of the Mustang? Was it like, did that bring up emotions?
Yeah.
Because you're kind of parting with this last sort of token from your dad.
Thanks for circling back with that.
Trying.
But yeah, no, that was that was one of the hardest moments I've had so far, because they're like, we're going to give you this money. You can't keep the car because it's a flood damaged car. Like, they're not going to insure it. So I can either get this pocket of money that I'm going to need, or I can keep this car, which will eventually just stop working, or I'm going to have to spend thousands of dollars. Like I was already looking at replacing, pricing out how much car seats cost, like replacing the car seats, and, the carpet all got wet. And it just didn't make a lot of sense. Like I knew in that moment that I was going to have to get rid of the Mustang. And it was very difficult because I don't have a lot for my dad. Like there's a lot of background stuff with that, but it's like, that was the thing that I had. Like I have a couple other, like a painting that my grandfather did and one or two other little basically trinkets and baubles, but like the Mustang was a thing.
Yeah. And it's a big thing because you sit in it every day and it's like a utility.
I used it every day. Yeah. And by the time the car got flooded, I had owned the car longer than he had. Like it was probably had it between the two of us about 20 years, maybe a little bit less than that. But,
well, did you have it? Because he died 16 years ago?
He died 2011. So we're coming up on 13 years now.
Okay.
So yeah, he probably bought it in like 2004, 2005. So I mean,
and it was like new and fucking sick then. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think he probably had it for like 7 years, maybe 8 years. And then I had it from 2013 till a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, it brought up a lot of, I don't want to say feelings that I haven't felt in a while or feelings that I haven't processed or dealt with. But it still was just kind of I can't get rid of this thing. Like this is the link that I still have. And I talked to my mom about it a little bit and a couple of other people, and they're like, "Nah, this is whatever higher power is out there saying it's time to get rid of this thing." And like, I know if I could like reach in to the behind the veil, I'm like, "Dad, they're going to give me $11,000 for this car." He would call me an idiot if I did not take it.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a surprising amount of money for that thing.
Yeah, there's some, I got very fortunate. Like through all of this, that's been the most, least pleasant, one of the least pleasant. And also at least there was some sort of like compensation for it, I suppose, or something tangible that came from it. Otherwise it would have been really shitty just to lose the car and just like the car just has to go away. It doesn't drive anymore. Right. So yeah, it was very jarring to have to like in that moment. And it took me a bit to kind of like process through that. I love my new ride. It's great. I wish it was the Mustang still. I'm always going to wish it was the Mustang. Like, I don't know what's going to happen to that car. If it's just going to get scrapped and totaled and end up in a heap somewhere or sold at auction for some reason. But I hope that at some point in the next decade or so, I can search for that VIN number and find out where it is and get it back.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'd love to. Like, I was always planning on keeping the Mustang forever. Like, put it down to liability only insurance, so it only cost me like $50 or $60 a month just to have it.
Yeah.
Pay registration, which wasn't, property tax on it isn't very high. So I was always planning on keeping it, like getting another car and then always having the Mustang too. Because I just didn't ever want to get rid of it.
Yeah. Why get rid of it if it's there and it's paid off and it's like an icon.
Right. And I feel like I didn't have any choice in the matter this time, which is, it takes agency away from me. Yeah. And it brought up those kinds of feelings, which I do not enjoy. I don't think anybody really enjoys it. I was kind of like, oh, this is just the thing I have to do. It sucks, but I have to do it. So I did it. And now it's gone somewhere else. I have no idea, but whoever helped me out with that title so I could actually get money for it, because it got totaled like 3 months prior.
That's right, because of the wreck.
Mm-hmm. But for, it drove, so it was instead of giving a salvage title, it was listed as a rebuilt, which meant I got to have money for it again.
Yeah.
which is wild to me.
Yeah, that's really wild.
So, in the end, it feels like maybe Dad was looking out for me in that moment, because that enabled me to, put a good down payment on a new car.
That's a pretty miraculous amount of money for that old of a vehicle.
Yeah.
That was also like falling apart a little bit.
A little bit. It was a little bit.
And then also soaked in French Broad River water and among other things.
It didn't smell too bad.
No?
I mean, after it dried out, it definitely was super mildewy, but I've experienced flood.
Sorry,
No,
it's meditation hour.
Very nice. Yeah. Anyway.
So he died in 2011.
He died in 2011, in December 11th, 2011.
Oh, nice. Well, not nice, but 12/11/11. That's nice. That's a pretty date.
Yeah.
You want me to crack another beer?
Yeah.
Should we crack one of these special ones?
Yeah, I think so. Let's do that. That almanac.
What's that mean?
The passion fruit sour. Yeah, with Brett.
Passion fruit sour from Almanac Beer Company, Northern California. All right.
Is that a Pikachu blanket? Oh, it is a Pokemon blanket.
It's an original 151 polyester.
Ooh.
Cheers.
Don't put it next to a fire.
Yeah, it would fucking incinerate.
It smells great.
It does smell really good. And it's very chilled, so
Yeah.
it'll come to life.
There's a lot of funk to it.
Well, I gave us the dregs, so it should have some chew.
A lot of funk. It's definitely got that Brett effervescence to it, like the way the bubbles feel to me. That's delicious. It's still great. God, it's juicy. Super juicy. I know, it's really good. It's very puckery. Sorry, everybody.
No, that's why they're here.
Yeah, they're here for our mouth noises.
They love the mouth noises.
Yeah.
Well, that's pleasant. I got to take a leak.
Okay.
I'll let you hang for a minute, and then we'll get back to it.
Okay, sounds good.
But you can do whatever you want. So December 11th, 2011.
Yeah.
The reason I think I find that date so nice is because anything that's the 11th reminds me of September 11th. Not that September 11th was great, but it does sit in my mind as like a very, just when you hear September 11th, it just like sends like a shiver up your spine, There's like something special about it. So December 11th sounds like September 11th's cousin.
I mean, in many ways, that day was worse for me.
Probably. Yeah, probably a lot worse.
That being said, if you take the entire scope of what happened after 9/11, it's definitely not like the world changed in that moment. But so he passed. It was a very short battle with cancer, renal cell carcinoma. He was a gregarious guy, but a very kind of strong, silent person growing up with. Eschewed Western medicine, just didn't like doctors, didn't like hospitals.
Was he from Louisiana?
Yeah. Yeah. My grandparents, his parents met in World War II. They were both in basically auxiliary services. They did filmmaking, I think, or something like that for the war. Like they weren't in combat, but they both were in the army in World War II.
Creating some propaganda.
Yeah, pretty much. So they ended up moving to New Orleans, which my grandfather's family, his parents lived in Chicago. My grandmother's family lived in Kiln, Mississippi. So where Brett Favre is from. That old so-and-so.
What a piece of trivia.
Mm-hmm. So they moved to New Orleans. They were hippies. They were artists. Not really hippies as much as the artist class. And then my dad had a couple of siblings both of them are still with us currently, which is great.
Yeah.
One lives in Durham. The other lives in, I think they're in Watkinsville, Georgia, which is right outside of Athens.
Okay.
So yeah, he was originally from New Orleans. He was born in 48, so had that 50s Leave It to Beaver childhood a little bit, and in the 60s graduated high school, went off to war, had a kid.
You.
No.
Not you.
Dude, I was not born in the 60s. Get
Oh,
out
sorry.
of here.
Wait, whoops.
And kind of
He had a kid?
He had a kid, yeah. I have 3 other siblings, 2 half siblings that are both older.
Like what? Like a decent amount older.
Yeah. Yeah. Jean is she's in her 50s.
So your dad had a kid when he was
great.
like 20 something?
19.
Oh my God. And those are your half siblings.
Yeah. Jean is a half sibling. There's another one, different woman. My dad was very prolific. So before he met my mom.
Of course.
So yeah. Went off to war, came back from war and joined a commune and did that for a while.
Oh.
And then kind of eventually found his way into the restaurant business in like the late 70s, early 80s.
Cooking?
I mean, at that point, he was just kind of doing whatever needed to be done. And then he got into cooking. And that is what his career was for 30 or so years of his life.
Damn.
Yeah, about half his life.
Wow. Cooking in Louisiana.
Yeah. Yeah, working for Paul Prudhomme, one of the OG celebrity chefs in the United States. The restaurant that he worked at is no longer there. That was a very sad moment walking by because I worked there as well after college. And that's actually where I got my start in the service industry, was doing cater waiting for the company, for the restaurant, when I was like 17. So, yeah, it closed during the pandemic and has finally, I guess, been bought and is being gutted for something. But like just walking by and it's just like a cavity, basically. It was a little weird. It was a little weird. I'm not surprised, but I am sad that it is not a thing anymore. Like, I really enjoyed, even after I didn't work there anymore, going in if I was visiting town or whatever, and, eating the same things that I'd always eat, asking for the special things off menu that I knew existed, and then bringing people there who had never been there before. So, yeah, that's like another part of that whole story, like a chapter that is firmly closed now.
Yeah. Yeah, and it closed when so many other things closed too. It's just like grouped in with this like large chunk of shit that just ended during 2020.
Right. But I mean, that time, like 2011, was a very rough 2.5 to 3 years for the family. The year before, my mom had a massive stroke. Didn't think she was going to make it. Like, the prognosis was bad. She spent quite some time in the hospital recovering from it.
Are your parents together at this time?
They were.
Okay.
They were. So, by the time my mom is coming home, based on when my dad got diagnosed and the diagnosis was, like, his body was being ravaged by cancer at that point.
Is he a smoker?
He was. Yeah, he was. But renal cell, so kidney cancer.
Okay.
Could have come from a lot of stuff. There's some talks about Agent Orange in Vietnam and other things that could have contributed to it. I know. Yeah.
That's frustrating.
And then like Camp Lejeune, because he was there for a little bit. And that whole thing, if anybody's seen commercials in this part of the country, like, the water was bad and it kind of gave people health issues. So, but yeah, when my mom got home, because she was wheelchair bound, her left side, right side, I can't remember. I see her, so I should be able to remember. Not of strong use any longer, and it still to this day isn't. But yeah, he was her primary caretaker. Like, he was working full time at the restaurant and also taking care of her. I was in Baton Rouge, working a fellowship, trying to move forward with my life, I suppose, like my career, try to do something, get out of the service industry. And then my brother was going through a very rough time for him. You know, a lot of just, there's a lot of background stuff, but unfortunately he was not a help. He was a hindrance during a lot of that time. So I remember I was doing my fellowship, and I was going home every weekend to see my mom, making sure that I was staying close. I mean, it's not a crazy drive, but doing it every single weekend was a little tiring, but, you know, pales in comparison to what my dad was going through in that moment. And once again, his body was killing itself.
Yeah. You all knew this?
We didn't know this.
You didn't know this yet?
We didn't know this. I got a phone call on, I don't remember the date specifically, but it was the day before my fellowship cohort had our capstone project presentation, where we were trying to basically convince the city of Baton Rouge to have a mesh Wi-Fi and give everybody free Wi-Fi downtown, that would work. So I got a call the day before from my dad. He's like, I'm in the back of an ambulance right now. I think I had a stroke. I'm not sure, but I'm going to the hospital now. And I'm like, cool. Well, everybody else in my life, because I was with a city parish agency, the Mayor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. Parish, for those who are unfamiliar, is what Louisiana calls counties. And yeah, I was like, Miss Joanne, I got to get out of here. I called the program director. I'm like, listen, I have to go to New Orleans right now. This is a big deal. So I ended up missing my capstone presentation the next day. And I got down there and my aunt had flown down immediately, and we were in the hospital room, and they're like, well, you didn't have a stroke, you've got cancer.
So what was the event?
He just his body just stopped functioning in a way that
he fell down or something, or
I'm not quite sure what it was, but it was definitely his body isn't functioning. What ended up happening was he had a small mass on his somewhere in the back of his brain, the brain stem, something like that, that was impairing his body's ability to function.
Oof.
So we found that out. It's you've got cancer. You've got this thing, and it's kidney cancer. That's where it originated from. So, he started, he had surgery, and we thought, the surgery went really well. He had surgery to, remove one of his kidneys, or a piece of it. And surgery went well. We're like, this is great. So I went back to Baton Rouge to finish my, they were going to give me, the fellowship was over. They were going to give me an extra 3 months to work there and try and find a job within, because I was out of the fellowship, but I was still working for the city as an emergency appointment. Basically, you could have 2 45-day emergency appointments, and then after that you have to get an actual permanent job. So I went back and I'm like, okay, cool, this is fine, things are going okay, the surgery went well, I think he's gonna start treatment for it. He's got to have this laser knife surgery to remove the mass that's on his brain, which is very interesting, very expensive too.
This is all still 2010, or this is 2011?
This is 2011 now.
Okay.
Yeah, this is 2011 now. Mom had her stroke in 2010.
Mm-hmm.
Dad died in 2011.
Okay, so this is early 2011.
This is
or mid 2011.
I mean, it's July.
Okay.
And so I'm back there. I'm doing my thing. I think my dad's prognosis is pretty good. I get a phone call about 45 days in or so, because I remember I was about to transition to the second half of the emergency appointment.
Yeah, you have a lot of nice little ways to remember these things, these chapters.
Yeah, a little bit. And it was son, the cancer's terminal. I'm like, okay. Well, I'll be home tonight or tomorrow. He goes, okay. So I go to talk to my boss, the director of the agency. I'm like, I will not be taking the second half of this. I have to move home. And I got home, and like I remember having a conversation. My mom at this point she's like still recovering from the stroke, so she's not totally with it at this point. Things are still weird with changes personalities, things like that. So I was having a conversation with my dad. He's like, son, I'm not telling you that you need to move home now, but you need to move home now. And I was like, yeah, I guess so.
What a burden.
Yeah. And I'm 25 at this point, 26. What is this? 2011, 27 at this point. And it's like, yeah, cool. No problem. I moved home, and, I started taking my dad to like radiation every day and, chemo once a week, and try to figure all that stuff out. And he's like, we went to Cleveland, to the Cleveland Clinic to get a second opinion about stuff. And basically, I mean, terminal cancer, right? It's terminal. It means there will be an end at some point.
So that was just like, it was just like his whole body. Had it spread to his whole body? Or
I mean, we knew it had spread, right? We knew where it originated, and we knew he had a cancerous mass on his brain. So we knew it had spread at that point. But you didn't know until he told me that it was terminal how bad it was. So, yeah, I move home. I start working at the restaurant again, and taking my dad during the day to his appointments, trying to figure it out. When we got our second opinion in Cleveland, I remember my dad very vividly going, am I going to be around until Christmas? And the oncologist that we saw was like, yeah, you bet. Absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It
seems like a big no-no.
It seems like a big no-no.
Just tell somebody
that. But I mean,
they are delivering hope, I guess.
They are delivering hope. So we go back, like basically business as usual. He's still trying to take care of my mom. My brother is still zonked out in his room. And I'm working. At this point, my dad was no longer working. So I'm trying to live the life that I'm living. It's a weird situation. Like, I'm back in my familial home. My dad's got terminal cancer. My mom had a massive stroke the year before it. My brother is a zombie in his room. And I'm just kind of going, how did I find myself here? This isn't my beautiful house. This isn't my beautiful life. And then he needed to have surgery. Like, they wanted to remove one of his testicles because the cancer was there too. So he had that surgery a few days before Thanksgiving. Surgery went well.
His testicles?
Yeah.
It seems like such a far away thing to deal with.
Well, I think they're just trying to get like the big chunks of it or something like that. I'm not sure. So he has that surgery. It's a couple days before Thanksgiving. And he's like supposed to rest. He's supposed to be resting. And I was like, hey, the Thanksgiving is tomorrow. I know you want to cook. But please wake me up so I can help, so I can do this stuff. And of course he didn't. He got up by himself and started cooking dinner. And
probably rocked.
It was great. It was great. It was the last meal my dad ever cooked for me. So at the end of that night, the end of that evening, he's like, I don't feel good. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, we'll go see your oncologist tomorrow. Well, like, we'll bring you to the hospital. So the next day, I guess it's Friday, we go to the hospital. They're like, we're going to check you in for the evening, do some tests. Cool. The next day, the oncologists that he has were like, hey, I was like, hey, I haven't heard anything from my dad, or I haven't heard anything about what's going on. Like, hey, if you come down, come talk to us. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, all right. So I get in and I go to talk to the oncologists without my dad. And they're like, listen, your dad is hypercalcemic. It means he has too much calcium, I think, in his blood. And it was a death sentence. Like, you're like, your dad's got about 2 weeks.
There's a calcium buildup due to the cancer.
Yeah. Personally, I think he overexerted himself from
cooking.
From cooking. From
What'd he cook?
surgery. I think traditional Thanksgiving dinner.
Standard stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had done weird, like duck and then gumbo and jambalaya.
I'm picturing since you're in Louisiana,
we've
like
done that before.
crawdads
Yeah,
and...
this was more traditional.
Okay.
So I was like, shit, that sucks. Okay. And I was like, are you going to go talk to him about it? And they're like, well, we've got a full day of appointments. Like, we can talk to him later. Like, we can come up there later. I was like, cool. Cool. And my dad's like blowing my phone up. Like, where are you?
Right.
I want to go home. Like, what is going on right now? And I'm like, I'll be there in a minute. So,
Yeah.
At that point, I called both of his siblings, called Uncle Mike and Aunt Penny, and delivered the news to them. And I'm like, all right, it's probably time to come on down.
This is Thanksgiving.
This is the day after Thanksgiving. Or it's Saturday after Thanksgiving.
Okay. So we have like a week and a half or 2 weeks.
Right.
Pending.
At this point, I'm like, okay, cool. Got 2 weeks to get everything figured out. So I go upstairs in his hospital room, and we're just hanging out, and he can tell something is off because I'm just like, I don't want to say anything. Things are weird right now. I can't do this. And he goes, he's basically just like, what the fuck is going on right now? Like, why are you being weird? Why aren't like, I want to go. Like, what is going on? I'm like, okay, cool. So I met with your doctors, and you've got something called hypercalcemia, and you've got 2 weeks to live. I had to tell my dad that.
That's crazy that
sucked.
they put that on you.
It sucked. I'm sure he would have rather hear it from me than from them.
But you would have rather not.
I would
have
have
tell him.
I would have loved to have found out in that moment that he was also finding out.
Right. Which seems like the thing that happens or should happen.
Yeah. So I had to tell him that, and he's basically like, well, this fucking sucks. Can we leave now? Can we leave?
Right. He wants a leftover Thanksgiving turkey
he
sandwich.
just wants to go home, right? He's not going to die in a hospital room. He wants to die at home. So we get my uncle, who was to come out.
Is the calcium just continuing to build perpetually?
Man, I guess so. I'm not quite sure.
So weird.
It is weird. But hypercalcemic, apparently, calcemia is not a good thing if you've got cancer. I don't think it's a good thing ever, but I think in that moment, it's real bad. So his brother-in-law, my uncle, my mom's sister's husband, comes down, and we start doing paperwork, right? He's got his buddy who's a lawyer, whatever, coming in basically to give us these documents, basically like a bunch of really shitty documents that have to be done. So we get done with that. We go home. At that point, things get kind of fuzzy. Memory-wise.
Well, so far, your recount of it is very impressive.
Yeah.
So.
Well, years of my mom trying to lightly gaslight me about things. I know we went back. I know we got him into hospice immediately. And by into hospice, I mean hospice at home. I signed all the paperwork, like the DNR, do not resuscitate, power of attorney, like his last will and testament, like that stuff. We got all that paperwork signed in the first couple of days. And at that point, my dad had given up. He was just kind of in his bed.
He accepted
it. He accepted what was going to happen, which was one of the harder things to see. So yeah, we did that. At some point, he told my mom. I don't remember when he told my mom. I don't know if he told my mom, but I believe he did. My mom swears that he did not. I'm like, well, that's not my place.
Tell her what?
That he was dying.
Oh.
Like, he was like, this was it. And at this point, my mom is still like, recovering.
Sure.
It's just, a little addled. And it was a really surreal time because it was only really a week or so. but that week was very hard. Family came in, family was trying to help out. My partner at the time was awesome. She had moved back to Idaho, but came back with my sister to like help out. And I will forever be grateful for her, to her for that. But yeah, that week was really weird. Like I never anticipated being the primary caretaker of my father, and then subsequently after he passed, my mother. And it was like helping your dad use the bathroom, right? But he can't. And like administering basically zombie drugs to him. So he just doesn't, like, just completely numb. And there's a couple of other stories from that are, very vivid in my brain that are just like really hard to talk about. But it was a pretty quick decline into the abyss. And the morning that he died, we were all keeping watch, rotating basically. And my partner came upstairs and was like, "Hey, your dad's breathing weird." I was like, "Cool. I think this is it. This is what we're doing." So we all go downstairs and figure it out. And he, passed in the morning that day. Peacefully. Excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Sip of beer.
Yeah, perfect time to sip a beer.
Yeah.
Which tastes great.
But with his family around him, which was great.
Yeah.
I think it's how we all want to go, if we have to, when we have to. But yeah, that was
I don't know if the beer helps or doesn't help. Like I'm never sure.
Well, I don't talk a lot about it.
Sure.
I talked a lot about it in therapy years later, and then, Annette, and then people around me and stuff. So I don't have a lot of practice talking about it. I have a lot of practice experience, like feeling it.
Sure.
But like saying the words out loud is a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. I mean, that's a very intense thing to manage.
Very intense. So yeah, everything was set up before it, like funeral arrangements, things like that. So that process was pretty seamless. We had a memorial service for him the next week, which was lovely.
Yeah.
Like people I hadn't seen in years. It was in our backyard, big ass gathering, celebrating his life, which is also, it's how I want to go. Anybody who is listening to this, I don't want a sad time. I want a time where people are like cracking jokes.
Yeah, let's party.
Yeah, let's party.
Crack some old bottles and fucking kick it.
The thing about death is it's the one experience, well, I guess two experiences we all experience.
Don't say anything about taxes.
Yeah, no, it's birth and death.
Oh, birth, okay.
Birth and death.
I thought that was going to be that classic taxes fucking bullshit.
Yeah, no, I hate that shit. No, so yeah, that was the experience with that. And then I immediately became the primary caretaker of my mom.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So, and that was really hard. Like that specifically was very difficult making that transition, because that's not a transition I had signed up for, but it was a promise that I made to my dad that I would take care of my mom. In retrospect, it was unfair of him to burden his child with that kind of responsibility. However,
and your brother's zombie, you said,
Yeah.
and your sister's doing what?
well,
Or you don't have a sister?
I have two sisters.
You have two sisters.
But one lives in Seattle, or lives in Snoqualmie. And they've had a complicated relationship, but it's time.
Oh yeah, you have the halfies.
And then my other half sister lives in Tennessee, and I don't talk to her or about her or think about her.
Okay. Heard.
Yeah.
And she's also like 20 years older than you?
Jean is like 16 years older than me, 15 years older than me.
So
Brandy,
you guys aren't even, might as well not even be family.
I mean,
you are.
it's like, well, Brandy is the one who lives in Tennessee, and she's probably 10 years older than me, somewhere around that neighborhood. But Jean and I, the oldest, she and I are close enough, close-ish.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure if she was listening to this, she would really be upset that I said that, but we're close. Like we like to talk to her more often. I would have liked to have seen her more often when I was living out in the Pacific Northwest, but life gets in the way for not only her, but me, and trying to make time for stuff is sometimes very difficult. So yeah, I became the primary caretaker of my mom. So I'm trying to work and navigate that. And like, my brother is being unhelpful. He's also at that time stealing thousands of dollars from my mom, who had just gotten, my dad's very modest life insurance, but also the 401k that he had. So it was just like a really, like, that year and a half was like the worst year and a half that I've had on this planet. Was like trying to navigate all of that and just being horribly depressed the entire time, but not really knowing it. Right.
Well, you're putting like all of your ambitions and your life goals on hold.
Right.
In order to manage all this.
Right. And I've also, at that point, like, I don't have a language. I don't have a coping mechanism for it except for alcohol.
Sure.
And pragmatism, which is a terrible combination. Useful for sometimes. Like right now, pragmatism is good. I will deal with stuff later, but I know I'm going to go back to it and deal with it later. At that point, it was just basically stuffing it away and drinking.
Getting through it.
So, yeah, it's making my way through that, trying to figure out that life, living at home, just like I said, being super sad about everything, but not really having a vocabulary or a way to process it, and just kind of being a shitty person. Like, shitty to my mom, shitty to my brother, shitty to my partner, because I hated everything that was going on. Then fast forward to December 9th, 2012, my aunt dies, my mom's sister. She also had cancer.
The fuck?
I know. So like in the span of about 2 years, like, my mom had a massive stroke, my dad died, and my aunt passed as well. So it was just like a lot in a very small period of time. I still keep in touch with my uncle. He lives in New Orleans. We had dinner when I was down there. It was
nice.
Amazing to see him. And yeah, I got to see my brother. Hadn't seen him in a while I was down there. But that is, yeah, kind of like the very short recounting of it. Like, it was like that year after Dad died. I mean, I don't think it hit Mom. It hit Mom in a different kind of way. And then, my aunt, her sister, is going through, like, has cancer. She was just like, fuck it. I'm like, I got cancer now. Cool. I'm not going through treatment. This is it. Like, we're just going to do it.
Let's just do this thing.
Thing. So, there was a lot of like standoffishness there because I don't think my aunt wanted to burden my mom with all of this. And it's just, there were just a lot of secrets that were being kept from people during this time that were really hard to navigate, and until you had to. And that's kind of the worst time sometimes to have to go through that kind of stuff. So yeah, she died in 2012, like 2 days before the anniversary of my dad dying.
Right. Just stack it up.
Yeah.
Let's just pile these things up.
Yeah. The holidays aren't necessarily my favorite time of year.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving kind of specifically, very bad.
Constant reminder.
Yeah. Constant reminder. It's been 13 years, so it gets better. That's the thing. The stages of grief, right? They're like, these are the stages of grief that you process through stuff. It's like, nobody tells you that you're just experiencing all of them at once. Like,
right.
You're going through all of those things, but it's like the stages or steps of grief is really a misnomer. Like, cause you're just kind of checking in, checking out of all of them.
Right. It's not like a clean transition.
It's definitely not a clean transition.
And you're dealing with them for fucking ever.
Yeah. So, it gets better. I don't deal with all of them now. I deal with some of them. There's always going to be a time that I wish I could call my dad.
Yeah.
And that just isn't possible. I know what he sounds like. I remember it. I remember what he looks like. I remember our relationship. Like, I have fond memories to rely on and like go back to. So in some of those ways, like, the acceptance part, I feel like kind of comes first, right? like you acknowledge, I guess, acknowledgement and then like acceptance. Like those two things I think kind of happen hand in hand. But like all the other stuff in the middle, like you still feel them later. You still feel them years down the line.
Right. Acceptance is kind of like finite. You accept like, and then deal with the rest of it.
Yeah, this happened. There's no unringing that bell. So, you just do your best to try and work your way through it when stuff like that comes up, which, to your question earlier, like some of that stuff came up when I found out I had to get rid of the Mustang because I couldn't ask him if it was okay.
Right.
But I asked Mom, and she was like, "That's fine."
She's like, "Fuck that Mustang."
She's like, "Get rid of that Mustang. Go and get your money." I'm like, "All right."
Yeah, get your $11,000.
Yeah,
fuck yeah.
So yeah, it was like that was a really, really rough time. And then at the end of having a conversation after Ann died, Mom was just like, "I want to have one more." I was like, "I got to get out of here. I'm gonna die. Like I'm making bad choices. Like I'm gonna either drink myself to death or I'm gonna fucking drive my car off a bridge or something like that. Like things are I'm not doing good, not doing well." So, we had one more set of holidays, 2012. Early in 2013, my brother went to rehab. And since then he is sober.
Nice.
Yeah.
Congrats, bro.
Yeah. He made a lot of very bad decisions in his life. And he is still paying for it in a lot of ways. But he's got 4 kids. They're great.
Wow.
He's done his best to kind of make amends, and I applaud him for that. There's a lot of other stuff behind it that I have to work through as well. But in he went to rehab, and then my mom moved to Durham to stay with my aunt and uncle, my dad's sister, for a bit. And so I was kind of in New Orleans by myself in that house for a few months, 4 or 5 months. I had talked to my sister who lived in Snoqualmie outside of Seattle, and I had been talking about taking an extended trip out there to see if I liked it, to see if maybe a change of pace, change of scenery was what was needed for me. So, she kind of put my feet to the fire a little bit. And I was like, yeah, cool. I'm going to get a plane ticket. I'm coming out. I'm going to bring the cat. And yeah, so I got out there, and the beginning of August in 2013. And like the first day I was there, I'm like, nope, this is what I'm doing. I'm going to move. So I ended up moving. And luckily no one has died since then in my family, nice, which is great.
Nice streak.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
It is, but there's always an air of inevitability with all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
We don't get to choose our time, and we all hope we've got that, nice. I hope that when my time comes, it is a relief rather than a surprise.
A relief to you or your
a relief
people?
To me. Like I feel like the people who get the most out of death are the old or infirmed, people who have had their lives, who have lived nice long lives. Like this is just it. This is what happens next. The people who get to look at it with the real air of welcoming an old friend, I suppose, I think is a line that I'm not a huge fan of the Harry Potter series, but I do remember there's a part where it's like welcoming death as an old friend kind of thing. And that's how I want it to be.
Sure. That's lovely.
It is. I'm also, when did you ever read the graphic novel or comic series The Sandman? It's by Neil Gaiman, which I've always been a fan of, but I wish he wasn't a shithead, apparently.
I don't know anything about him.
Yeah, he apparently was got too familiar with people that he shouldn't have gotten too familiar with. I think that is putting that very kindly. But he's got this graphic novel. It's basically about Sandman, who is keeper of the realm of dreams. But he's got his siblings who are referred to as the Endless, because there was never a time without them, and there will never be a time. There will always be. They will always be.
They're endless.
And one of them, one of his siblings, is Death. If you've ever seen people doing cosplay, like kind of pale, like Death is usually presented as a woman in this comic, but very like kind of goth, has a little like Egyptian symbol under her eye. But she's the person that ushers people in after they've died, to the next realm. And basically her phrase is you got, when people are like, why me, why now? It's like, you got the same thing everybody else got. You got a life. And for some people it's super long and very they got to experience. And for some people it's very, very short, but we don't get to choose. So I've always tried to keep that in mind with kind of how I approach things.
How does that influence you?
I mean, I don't believe that I believe nothing happens when you die, right? Like I don't believe there's an afterlife. I don't believe that there's anything for us after we shed our mortal coil. Like, I think that is it. So it makes me want to experience life as much as possible while I have it. Like, I'm not living for an eternal reward. I don't believe in reincarnation. Like, I don't think there's anything else. So I want to, like, we only get this amount of time on this planet. And I feel like, the last couple of years have been weird, but we've lived in a pretty interesting time. We get to see all kinds of stuff. We've seen the connectivity of the world via the internet. And it's really made the world an interesting place because we just have all of this information. We have all of this knowledge, like basically the breadth of human knowledge we have at our fingertips at all times. And being able to try and use that and tap into it and learn it and experience it is a huge deal for me, while also understanding that I live in this society where I have to work and I have to, there are things I'd much rather be doing with my time. But to do those other things, I have to do other stuff, like, go to work and make money and pay bills and take time off of work. And work, I guess, is the
biggest downfall of life.
Yeah. So I guess in that way, I don't do a great job making every day count. I try to.
That's a very big ask.
It's a big ask and it's unrealistic. And I think people who are trying to tie themselves to that philosophy sometimes stress themselves out. They stress themselves out. They're like, I'm not doing everything that I want to be doing.
Right.
But understanding we have only a finite amount of time. So fitting it in where you can and kind of experiencing life and finding someone or some people that you want to spend your time with and find fulfillment and enrichment through your connections with people, your connections with nature, your connections with your hobbies, your activities, things that help you get into a flow state that kind of just let you zen out. I think are super important, and the things that are kind of most worth pursuing in this life, because if there's nothing after it, then what were you doing? I mean, yeah. So that's kind of how all of that has affected me. And for reference, for once again, anybody who is listening, I spent all the way up until college going to Catholic school. So I am very well.
Oh, wow.
I am.
When did that change? When did the change in your ideals come? With the death of your dad, or was it prior?
It was prior. So freshman year in college, I was feeling a little lonely, a little lost, a little kind of listless. So I was baptized Episcopal, and there was an Episcopal church. I decided to show up one day to the student group and met those folks. They're lovely people. They were very, very nice. I spent a semester or so kind of going to the ECU, was like the Episcopal Student Center, something like that. I can't remember what the acronym was. And enjoying my time there. But I never felt a connection with the church, with a higher power. So I kind of drifted away from that, and I never really came back to it. Like there's a lot of like dogmatic reasons, like theocratic reasons that I just can't reconcile in my brain. Like people are like, go outside, look at trees, look at nature. Like that's what it is. And like I can get down with that kind of philosophy. But in terms of like a higher maker that is wanting us to be good and pious for a reward, makes me feel like a pet as opposed to a human. And one of the things in life that I have struggled and have worked really hard to is to have an to be autonomous, to be my own person, to make my own decisions. Sometimes those decisions are in a vacuum with other folks, you know, Annette, of course, like we're making decisions together all the time. But like choosing, like what is it in Trainspotting? Choose life, right? You're choosing to, instead of being reactionary. And that's how I've always wanted to be. And you know what? At the end of the day, if I die and I find myself at St. Peter's Gate, and it's like, what were you doing, man? I'm like, I was experiencing everything that y'all tried to give us. And if that's not good enough, if me just trying to do better every day and be a good person outside of the rules of a church or some sort of theocratic belief system, then so be it. Like, I just try to be a good person. I try to hold grace for what people are going through. Because, I mean, I went to work every day during that time that my mom, had her stroke and my dad got sick. And then after that, like, I was still doing the same thing. I was waiting tables, bartending, just being nice to people. They had no idea, and I didn't really talk about it because it's not very good dinner conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not why they're there.
No, they're there to have a good time. And I understand that. But I think it's given me a lot of kind of empathy for people that are not having as good of a time. Because you don't really know what people are going through in the moment.
Sure. And it could be that.
And it could be that. It could be something huge.
Having to like mourn their dad before he's dead.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess like the deaths that were in that period of time. And, sometimes I don't think my mom's going to listen, but I consider like her stroke a little bit of the death of the mom that I grew up with and knew, because she changed.
Yeah.
Like she had an entire personality shift. Like her brain got rewired. Like it's a super gnarly thing that happened to her. So yeah, there was a lot of change in that period, but I think I was already on the path of self-enlightenment, which sounds very, very Asheville, very woo-woo to say, but just kind of like more of a personal agency before that. And then certainly after that, like once I made the decision to move to Seattle, and I kind of was able to not rid myself, but separate from the not burdens either, but separate from what was going on. My mom was now being taken care of by somebody else. My brother was in rehab. I was in another city. I was in another state. I was as far away as humanly possible.
Yeah.
It allowed me to regain some of that agency. And then my friend group that I found myself in are also very much like, this is the life we get. This is what we're doing. And just living our lives and just living in this existence. If there's something after this, cool, man. Like I look forward to finding out about it, but I'm not going to put any of my eggs in that basket.
It's a big risk to take.
It is. I remember, so I went to Jesuit high school, and they're the very like academic branch of Christianity. Very like, it takes a long time to become a priest, a Jesuit priest. Like there's a lot of studying, like they're very academic in nature. And I forget what it was, but it was somebody's razor, like Occam's razor, but somebody else's razor. It's basically like, why not just be a good person who follows the teachings of the Bible? Like, what's the risk in that? If you just want to be a good person anyway, why not just follow this? Because on one side, you get to an everlasting reward. On the other, you don't. But I've never subscribed to that anyway.
Right.
Like, if you're a good person, it shouldn't matter what your beliefs were.
Right. The incentive to be good should be to be good.
To be good. Exactly. And that's how I've tried to go about it. I don't blame anybody for any of their belief systems, especially when it comes to religion. You know, everybody needs something to believe in. And if that's what you believe in, if that helps you be a better person, then that's great. Like, I believe in me. I believe in you. I believe in the people around me and the community that I build. Like, that's where I get my strength and confidence from, and my want to not live, but I want to be a better person, because I want to be a better person for my community. Like, I don't want to, that's a huge motivator for me. Like, caring what other people think about you helps you kind of stay ahead of it a little bit, right? You know, but truly trying to internalize that. Like, no, I like everybody around me. I like the people. Like, I want everybody around me to be happy and to succeed. And when people aren't happy and they aren't succeeding, being there for them and understanding. And the hardest part about it is when the shoe is on the other foot, allowing people to help you and allow for, allowing for that help, allowing for yourself to have grace, is a huge part of growing up, and something that I struggle with all the time. I've always wanted to be the person for other people, but a lot of part of it is allowing people to be good for you too, especially when you build a community. Everybody is there for a reason, and it's important to recognize that and be okay with that. But yeah, that's my motivation for being a good person, is for other people, for myself, for other people, for my partner, for my family. And you're never perfect. So you just keep trying. And that's such a good motivator. After, seeking out therapy after kind of a weird time in my life, I've always tried to be of the mindset, I just try to be a little bit better every day. And some days I'm going to fail. Most days I'm probably going to fail.
Yeah.
But just trying to move forward in that direction helps you be a better person, helps you be better for yourself, helps you be better for your community. Yeah. So that is where I put, that's the basket that I put my eggs into, is just belief in what we have here.
Yeah, because it's here.
It's here.
It's
now. Tangible. I get to see it. I get to experience it. I get to interact with it.
Right.
And I love it. I'm 40 now.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Not today. It was 420. But yeah, it's am I middle age now? It's just something I struggle with sometimes. It's I hope I live to 80, but I hope if I'm leaving at 80, I got a good life. I'm not sick. I'm not just holding on just to hold on.
Right.
I hope I got another 40 years in me. But yeah, I don't think, very few people are ever ready for it, right? Ready for the end. The lucky people are. I think the fortunate people are. And of course, anybody who's listening out here is that's not my experience. It's I understand. There's nuance in every single conversation, and it's just kind of a little bit of a blanket statement. But yeah, seeing death so up close and personal it does kind of realign how you interact with things.
Totally.
And if you live long enough, you're going to experience it a lot in your life. My first big death in my family was my mom's mom, when I was like 7. But I didn't really have a lot of frame of reference for it. And then there was a kid in high school that I was friends with that died, got into a car accident. So that was like a little bit more of an understanding of my place in the world and what was going on, and being able to actually be sad about something like that. Because I think as a kid, you can kind of understand it, but you can't like grasp what it actually means until you're a little bit older. And then when you start getting that and it starts happening, it really kind of shapes your perspective on life and interactions with it. And it can take you in so many different ways, like so many different paths. And there's no right way or wrong way. I'm sure there's some wrong ways.
There's probably some wrong ways.
Probably some wrong ways, but there's not like a true right way to deal with it. And that's part of the human experience, is trying to figure stuff like that out. But I'm happy that I was able to come out of that time, like during that time, bad, but coming out of that time much better.
Yeah.
And it really allowed me to kind of become the person that I am today. And like I said, sometimes I fail at being the person that I want to be in this world. But using the impetus as I have a very finite amount of time here as a way to kind of recover and move forward and regroup when things are, when you've got setbacks.
Yeah.
Like that's what's happening here in Asheville right now is not the worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life. It's a tragedy. It's a tragedy for a lot of folks. Like a lot of folks have had the worst time of their life because of this.
Mm-hmm.
I think I lost my train of thought a little bit there, but everything gets put into context, and I think it makes you appreciate that you're still here, that you still get to experience the world. And I think deaths remind us of our mortality, and in the right circumstances allow us to, for lack of a better word, be more mortal, be more interactive with what's going on around us, instead of kind of putting yourself in a bubble and being afraid of it. Like I don't ever want to be afraid of it. Like
you're not afraid of it?
It's just something that's going to happen. Like it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Will I be, if it happens before I want it to be, sad? Sure. But honestly, once I die, I'm not going to.
You're not going to be sad because you're not going to know.
Sad. Yeah. It just like death is both finite and infinite, right?
Yeah.
Like it exists in both ways. So, live in Moss, live in life till it's to its fullest. Or at
Taco
least,
Bell?
Yeah. Sponsored by Taco Bell.
God, fucking wish.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so it's just using those experiences to reaffirm that we are only human. We are mortals, and at some point we will cease to be, but using that time better, using that time to do more things. Read that book. Pick up that banjo. I'm talking to myself right now.
Do you have a banjo at your home that's just waiting to be picked up?
I've had it for like 10 years. I've never really picked it up.
That's an intimidating instrument.
It is. I've always wanted one. I've always wanted to play it, but it's one of those things that has always been on the back burner a little bit. Like,
sure.
I'll pick it up. I look at it every day and I'm like, one day
I'm going to play you.
Yeah, it's just a decoration right now in the house.
They're pretty to have. That's what that ukulele's sitting there for.
It's a great uke.
Yeah, it's great. But it's no banjo.
I mean,
that intimidates me less than a banjo, because I could pick that up and probably play something, but a banjo, I'd have no idea. I'd have literally no idea to approach a banjo.
It is a difficult instrument.
Yeah,
from what I have heard.
It looks it. Well, fucking that rocks, dude. I mean, it sucks that your dad's dead.
Yeah, no shit.
And that your aunt died as well. But like, I think where you are now from it, like it feels very much like you had your life prior to your dad dying, and then you have your life after it. And
yeah.
Your life after it sounds much better.
I'm doing all right,
and your
man.
outlook is a lot better, and you're healthier, and you're better for it.
Yeah, definitely.
It sucks. I think you'd probably trade anything to have your dad, or even just to like chat with him one more time, but you can't. That's not an option. So you do with what you have, what you can.
Yeah. But I'm still here.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the thing. I am still here until the day that I'm not here. I am still here. And the people that I choose to interact with and spend my time with, the real quality time and the activities that I choose to do in my quality time, like that is what is of the utmost importance to me. It was like, yeah, I can't bring my dad back. I can't bring my aunt back. Like, I have the memories of them. And, you know, that as long as I'm around and talking on podcasts or whatever, like, they're still here.
Yes.
In some, like, intangible kind of way.
That's my view as well.
And that's it. And you
keep
know
them
what?
alive with your actions.
Yeah. And, like, in a couple generations past, nobody's going to remember, and that's okay. Like, I don't need to, like, if you're not worried about making your mark on the world and just make your mark on the space that you occupy in the time, I feel like it takes a lot of burden off of existence in general. Like, I'm not trying to be in an encyclopedia. I'm not trying to get my own Wikipedia page. I don't give a shit about that. But the people who know me and spend time with me, like, I want them to remember me fondly.
Yeah.
And that's all I ask.
That's your mark.
That's it.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, man.
That's an intense thing to deal with.
It is.
And like a really tough position and just a weird series of events to like have to suddenly be your dad's caretaker and then subsequently your mom's caretaker. But I think you handle it fucking like a rock star.
I did the best I could with the tools I had in the moment. Obviously, there are things I wish I could go back and change and do over and do differently, but you know, all I can do is grow and learn from it and move forward. But also understanding that these experiences shaped who I am right now. Like, I am not the canon that I am without that stuff happening.
Totally.
And, you know, like you said, like, I wish I could go back. Like, I would trade, you know, and maybe that's getting older too. I don't know if I would trade my life to have my dad back.
I have had that same conversation about my mom,
Yeah.
or, you know, my experience. This is kind of similar. I'm like, I don't even know, like, really who she is anymore. And would it even make sense to bring her back? You know, like, we saw a comedian recently and he had a bit about, he was like, I used to want to bring my sister back, but now, like, she wouldn't really fit in. She's like, it doesn't really, like, it can't really exist in these relationships anymore. But I feel the same way. That relationship I had with my mom was like, I was a 16-year-old kid, love her to death, will love her forever. But like, I have built like a really good thing here now. And I don't know that, like, it's an interesting thought to like, because it does feel like the cliche is like, oh, I'd trade anything. But like, a certain point where that sort of loses its balance a little bit, and suddenly it's not really worth the trade.
Yeah, I honestly completely agree. Like, I think if there was a hypothetical, if I could reincarnate my dad for one conversation, be like, I could bring you back, but this is what I'm trading. What would you want? And, you know, that's the thing. Like, we all get the same thing. We get one life, right? That was his. I'm living mine now. Like, I miss my dad every day, like, for sure. And for, like, stuff reminds me about him all the time. But I am the person that I am now, and I have the life that I have now, which I'm pretty happy with, because he passed.
Yeah.
And is it, you know, the idea is it's selfish, but I can't. Yeah, I can't imagine a scenario where I would trade what I have now for him to be back and kind of be back to where I was before he passed. Like, I like myself so much better now. Sure. Like, of course, like, I wish he was back for my mom, you know. I wish he was back so I could just talk to him about football and whatever. Like, mostly for my mom, but like, here we are. Yeah. Like, we can't change it. So yeah, I don't know. It's it is kind of a weird thought exercise. Like, you know, you've done it. If you can go back and change one thing in your life, you're like, yeah, but if you change that one thing, everything changes.
If I change it to where my mom is still here, I'm like a pussy bitch, dude. Guaranteed. I'm like a little bitch. Whereas that was the moment in my life that like totally, it was like overnight, my entire paradigm shifted and my outlook on life changed. And I was like, this is short. You need to do the shit that you want to do. And there's no second chance. Like, let's do this. Whereas if she was still alive, it'd be fun. Like, I'd love it. I'm constantly envious of like people in their relationship with their mother because it's sweet and it's always cute and fun. But like, I wouldn't give the like person I am now away to have her back.
Yeah. I mean, at some point you have to kind of, it's like internalizing a little bit of your selfishness. And I think that's great. You know, you've done so much evolution of your being over these times. I mean, you're still in your 20s, like my 30s, like regardless of the fact that these things happen in my mid to late 20s, like my 30s were the decade that I did the most growth, the most growing into the person that I am now. And I just couldn't imagine not being able to have that experience. Like, yeah, if I go back and I'm like, Dad, you've got to go to the hospital, or like you need to go to the doctor, you probably have cancer, like a year before he dies or whatever.
Right.
Then like I never move to Seattle. You know, I never start working at Browers. I never start making my lifelong friends that I did. I never meet Annette. You know, and I just can't imagine my life now without my friend group that I met out there and Annette. Like, I just don't feel like my life would be complete without them.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, my dad passing was a huge catalyst for me getting there. And yeah, I think it's okay to say I miss him all the time. I miss him constantly. I wish he was still around. And what happened allowed me to be the person that is sitting here right now and being able to hold those at the same time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, cheers to that.
Yeah, man.
We're both empty, but cheers. Yeah. We just cleaned up 2 hours, dude.
What time is it?
2 hours after we got here.
Oh, sure.
What time is it? 6:40.
I was like, I can't tell what time it is outside right now.
Yeah,
it's terrible, man. I hate it.
Yeah, it's early. It's still early.
We have saved daylight. Get rid of daylight savings time. Give me this extra hour.
Daylight. We're the heroes.
Yeah, it's us specifically.
We saved daylight. What a miracle. Well, you know, I think you kind of touched on all the things that I would typically ask, and I appreciate you I felt like you were like writing the book for us, and it was really nice to listen to. I mean, tragic and devastating, but well put together. And I don't even feel like you touched on the things that I would ask, which is always like if there's anything like your last words, if there's anything you would want to tell the people, but I think you told them already, so it doesn't even it feels redundant to ask. So I really appreciate you sharing that. It's an intense thing to experience, but I appreciate your outlook on it, and it's like the way you expressed it and your experience with it feels pretty much like the symbol of what this whole thing is supposed to be, which is like, yes, people are going to die. Yes, you're going to deal with terrible, terrible things, and life is going to be very difficult. But where are you because of it? What do you gain from it? And it sounds like you fucking gained a shit ton. So,
yeah, I mean, I think in our society, like Western society, New Orleans is a little bit different, but we try to hide death. We tuck it away. We don't talk about it. We don't necessarily let ourselves experience it, and we don't think about what it means just in the scope of our day-to-day lives and where we are because of it. Growing up in New Orleans, it was great because, I mean, it was very interesting, but we celebrated life down there. You know, that's what that city is about. When people died, we celebrated death too. And I know there's cultures around the world who do the same thing. I think we can learn some lessons from those cultures about not hiding behind it and understanding that it is inevitable and accepting it, and you know, finding space and time in your existence to think about it and talk about it and what it means for your future. So, you know, I try not to hide behind it too much, but we don't really get a lot of opportunities to talk about it. We get a lot of opportunities to experience it when it happens to us, but saying the words out loud and kind of talking with other people about it, I think is important for everybody, not just for the person who's experienced loss, but for people who might be experiencing loss in the future. I mean, like, no, we're all in this together.
Totally.
We all experience this. We can all experience it differently, but we are all part of this life. And unfortunately, being part of this life involves having a lot of death around you too. And not to be afraid of it, but to accept it as an inevitability and, allow that inevitability to let you celebrate life while you're living it.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. Unless the music comes in,
I was like, was that,
fade out, and that's it.
Was that poignant?
That was poignant. Fuck yeah, dude. Can I get your picture?
Yeah, man.
I forgot to take a picture of Sammy when I had her up here. But you can keep the headphones on because you look cool.
Oh, thank you very much.
Nice, dude. And I think it sounds great, too.
Yeah. They did sound good. The setup was really nice, man.
I'm going to get a different one, too. That one was too high up. Thanks, dude.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Well, that's it. I mean, that's it.
I was like, if you ever have a net on it.
I'm going to. I wanted to have you on first.
I appreciate that. She was like, well, the other reason we're on is because you can't about it. I'm like, yeah, I don't care.
Well, I just didn't think about it. It's sort of like, I feel like the experience we have as coworkers is like that. So, like, when I first get into talking to Annette
Thanks, Dad.
You're welcome, son.